Let's just establish that. The reason you're in debt is because you don't have money. The reason I owe on my truck is because I didn't have the money to pay cash. If I had the money to pay cash without destroying the integrity of my other financial plans, why would I borrow? Why would I borrow for a house if I just have the cash to pay for that house? Now, yes, you can get into the whole, well, using other people's money and time value money and interest, whatever. You have debt because you don't have the capital to pay cash, period. So until you can have the cash for the emergencies, for the urgencies, and for the things that other people make you feel are important right now, until you can have the cash for those things, you'll always find yourself in the cycle of debt. So I'm a firm believer that getting out of debt starts with having cash first.
Why is it that two people can have the exact same amount of money, the exact same investment portfolio, and the exact same financial advisor, yet one retires in total peace while the other lives in a constant state of market-induced panic? The difference isn't in the math, it's in the machinery. Most people treat their lives like a series of random events, while the elite treat it like a repeatable system. On Main Street, we're told to work hard for our money, but we're rarely told how to build a system that keeps us from sabotaging it. I'm Sturdivant Sr, and today we're looking at the blueprint behind professional excellence. I'm joined by Yohance Harrison, who has cracked the code on behavioral alpha, the measurable value of keeping your cool while everyone else is losing theirs. In the first half of our conversation, we're pulling back the curtain on how to systematize trust. And this is whether you're an entrepreneur trying to grow a business or a family trying to grow a legacy. We're moving past the what of investing and getting to the how of high-level execution. If you're tired of reacting to the headlines and ready to start installing an engine of growth, you're in the right place. This is Main Street meets Wall Street. We don't just talk about the markets. We talk about your life. Let's bridge the gap. Main Street heart meets Wall Street smarts. 10% market return looks great on a spreadsheet, but it doesn't mean a thing if a 20% behavioral mistake wipes it out in a single afternoon. Most people spend their entire lives chasing the perfect ticker symbol or the next hot sector, completely unaware that their own psychology is their biggest hidden tax on their wealth. On Main Street, we're taught to watch the numbers, but we aren't taught to watch ourselves. I'm Sturdivant Sr, and today we're going behind the math to find your invisible edge. I'm sitting here with Yohance Harrison, who's mastered the art of behavioral finance, behavioral alpha. We're tearing down the headline noise of 2026 to show you how to build mental guardrails that protect your portfolio from your own emotions. If you ever wonder why your financial plan feels solid until the market gets volatile, this is the episode you can't afford to miss. Yohance, it's great to have you here. You've built a career around the idea that technical financial literacy is actually incomplete if you don't understand the person behind the money. We see people with the right data still making the wrong moves. Why is the behavioral side so often the missing piece of the puzzle for the average investor?
Marcus, thanks for having me here. It is exciting to be here with you today to spend some time. My Charlotte native, Carolina in the house. Let's get it. Shout out to those boys up there. Since they're in the shot, we'll go ahead and say what's up to them. I need to put a Hornets basketball up there. It has nothing to do with your question, but actually has everything to do with your question. But I want to say one thing just in case this episode comes out a little sooner than I think. I'm still technically a CFP candidate. No, it's okay. It's okay. I passed the test. I got the experience. I just got to wait for the official results to come out and pay that fee, which supposedly is happening next week. So depending on how fast your editing team does, we good. But yeah, got all the components. So my message about sports teams has everything to do with the technical piece of finance. Because we all know, for those of us that follow sports, we all know those teams that have all the technical pieces and that should win championships. Or they'll have all the technical pieces, they should just win the game tonight. But then something goes terribly wrong. Is it started to rain and it didn't plan on rain? Is it that someone just had an argument with their spouse the night before? At the end of the day, what I'm talking about, the things that get in the way, is emotions. Emotions wind up destroying the best laid plans because we as humans are emotional creatures. And the thing I really want you to understand about emotion is the word motion. We tend to do things because we feel a certain way. And that can, as you said in your intro, can destroy the best plan of making a 9, 10, 11, whatever % rate of return and all get blown out in a day or two because of emotions forcing us as humans to want to do something because things aren't going our way.
Gotcha. Yeah, emotions and That's good stuff. I mean, people generally, logically, you want to sell high, buy low, but emotionally, when we see the market go down, we people tend to do the opposite. They tend to sell low and then come back and buy high, jump in and out of the market. Timing the market, trying to time the market is not a good plan, not a good move. We'll get deeper into you and like you said, the Charlotte connection a little bit later on. We're coming out right now for those listening. We're mid April, and we just came out of, like, since February to April, a deep correction. Well, it wasn't a deep correction, but 10% pullback. People were worried. Everybody's hair was on fire. What were you seeing, and how do you feel that your behavioral approach with your clients helped in this time? Were your phones ringing off the hook, or did they already know the plan?
8%, or probably 99. Let me do one. 99.5% of my clients already knew the plan. But there's always the few stragglers out there. And funny enough, the stragglers were the people that had the least need to even be concerned. Meaning, had they actually, because they didn't look at their portfolio out of fear, but had they actually looked, they would have seen that they're fine. And what I mean by fine is that I believe that we manage portfolios for risk tolerance, or loss tolerance is usually a better way to say it. I manage portfolios for loss tolerance, not a return. So we will only get the returns, those higher returns that are sought after, if they have a high enough loss tolerance. So the clients that unfortunately were a little concerned, their loss tolerance was low, so they weren't getting the same result that they saw on the news. And that was my conversation with them. It was like, what do you think's happening in your portfolio? Well, I'm hearing that the market is down. The S&P is, as low as it was, and fill in whatever time frame it was, November, October. Does that mean I've lost everything since October? I was like, well, let's look and see. And they pull up and look, and was like, well, I haven't lost anything. I know. Why is that? Because you have a very low loss tolerance. So we design your portfolio in that way. And that also means that when you hear that the market recovers, because it will, I didn't know it was going to happen 2 weeks later. I said, but when you hear that it recovers, don't expect to participate in that either. And it's like, well, what if I want to? No, because you cannot have one without the other. These are lock steps. If I step with the left foot, then immediately after I have to step with the right. And that is the relationship between this volatility and risk and the returns that you want to seek. And then I also said, you don't need that much money anyway. So please find something else to do with your time. I usually wind up quoting Kendrick Lamar. I say, just turn the TV off. Turn it off.
Man, that's interesting to say when we're both from North Carolina. Fall
I
off.
mean, I could also say, take your shirt off and wave it around your head like a helicopter. That'll make you feel better.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I feel you. And the emotional side, as you just explained. So, and that's another thing. Most people mention is risk tolerance. You mentioned it's like loss tolerance, right? How much can you stand to lose? And when you're not losing as much as the market, you're not going to get as much on the upside when the market goes up. And sounds like you do a good job explaining that to your clients and people who come on board with you. I want to dig into that a little bit in a second, but I have a thought here. I'm huge on financial literacy, right? But financial literacy without the behavioral aspect, that's incomplete, right?
So the first portion of financial literacy, if you pick up go to some of the top experts in the area, and you ask them about financial literacy, they're going to begin with behaviors. They're going to begin with helping people understand their biases, and some of their money scripts that are already ingrained in them, that they picked up as a child, that they picked up as a teenager, that they picked up when they were first introduced to this wonderful concept called money. So because of those ingrained behaviors and biases, until you can learn how to rise above those, think through them, or even repurpose them, all the other stuff, time value of money, the different types of taxable versus non-taxable, etc., none of that will matter until you can overcome your preconceived notions and relationships that you have with money. So I believe behavior is actually step one. And even if we think about from a cash flow, whether it's day to day, week to week cash flow, month to month, or even a retirement cash flow scenario, you can't out earn bad budgeting. So, and that's true whether you have a job or you're talking about a portfolio. If you are bad with your budget, if you have more money going out than coming in, We can't solve that by just making more money, because you'll continue to have more money going out and coming in. It's a spending problem. It's a habitual problem. So that has to be repaired first before any of the other things will have a lasting effect on the portfolio. It's like and we've all seen it, when you have an individual that lives paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by, and then they get a raise or they get a bonus and they find ways to spend that as well. And so they continue to live paycheck to paycheck no matter how much money they make. That's a behavioral problem.
Right.
So until that can be repaired, they'll continue in that same cycle all the way through their retirement.
Oh, that's deep. And that's so true. And that's one of the things, like when I sit down with my clients and we're talking about building up, depending on where you're at stage of life. Because like you said, if you're spending $110, but you're only earning $100, or even if it's $1 million and you're spending 1.1 million, like you said, the amount doesn't matter if your cash flow is negative. So we're talking about like things we should establish first, right? First, you need that emergency fund. Then work on paying off that highest debt, right? Interest rate. Some people prefer the snowball method. Whatever method you prefer, work on paying off the debt. They'll usually say, why not pay off the credit card debt first? That goes to your behavioral set right there. Because if you're already in the habits of running up this credit card, you'll get close to paying that credit card off and something's going to happen. You won't have it in cash, right? And you're going to put it back on the credit card and you're right back there again.
Yeah, it's a scarcity mentality. The way I like to share with it is share on the whole credit card and debt concept is the reason you're in debt is because you didn't have money. Let's just establish that. The reason you're in debt is because you don't have money. The reason I owe on my truck is because I didn't have the money to pay cash. If I had the money to pay cash without destroying the integrity of my other financial plans, why would I borrow? Why would I borrow for a house if I just have the cash to pay for the house? Now, yes, you can get into the whole, well, using other people's money and time value money and interest, whatever. You have debt because you don't have the capital to pay cash, period. So until you can have the cash for the emergencies, for the urgencies, and for the things that other people make you feel are important right now, until you can have the cash for those things, you'll always find yourself in the cycle of debt. So I'm a firm believer that getting out of debt starts with having cash first. I freak clients out sometimes. So I'll meet, clients every now and then, usually referred. It's like, can you really help out my brother or really help out my sister? They got some debt they need to pay off. And it's like, okay, not so much my line of work anymore, but I want to help people. And I'm like, okay, I'll help them out a little bit. And then I'll tell them, hey, for the next 90 days, you're only going to pay the minimums on these cards. Oh, but the interest and this and that and the third. I say, yeah, but your bank account has $8 in it. You put all that money on that credit card. You know what's going to happen tomorrow? You're going to wake up with a flat tire. How did you know? That happened last week. I said, because it tends to happen to people that live in a scarcity mentality. You'll be surprised how the amount of emergencies that happen when you have money surprisingly tend to go down. But when you don't have money, you're living in fear of the emergencies all the time. So you're giving that energy. So guess what? Universe just lets it show up for you because you're looking for it. It's the whole seeking you shall find. You're looking for problems. And so the problems keep showing up. But if all of a sudden you start looking for solutions, and the solution is I'm going to have this money set aside, for some reason, the amount of problems start disappearing. It's not more money, more problems. It's not what they meant when they said it in the song. They were talking about something totally different. It's actually when you have more money, it helps reduce. You have the ability to cover those problems, or they are not problems. Cars break. They're not built to last forever. So it is not yet. Is it a inconvenience that you have to change your tires? Sure. But tires don't last forever. It only becomes a problem when you don't have the money to pay for the tires. When you have the money, it's like, oh yeah, it's time for new tires.
Right. So that's when you seek the problem, you'll find the problem. It's a conversation me and my wife have far too often. If you're looking for a problem, you can find it. Same thing with me. If there's something you're trying to find, you'll uncover it. But also, what you mentioned, these people will have cash reserves, the ones who don't see these as emergencies. What is an emergency? I was quoted in an article with Newsweek a long time ago, and it was speaking about a mother who's wanted access to her full-grown daughter's bank account at any time that she could just take out for emergencies. And yeah, man. And the daughter was like, I don't think that's good.
I'm
And I
not
was saying, like,
invasion of privacy. Geesh.
right. And I was like, one of my big things is what is judged as an emergency, right? Different people see different things as an emergency. So if you have the funds to get those new tires and you probably already budgeted for them, that's not really an emergency when your tire goes flat, right? You mentioned something that a lot of people probably don't hear a lot, money script. Can you elaborate on what the money script is? And then can you tell us a little bit about what your money script is?
So a money script is an idea, or it's a thought process that has embedded into your mind, into your behaviors as it relates to your relationship that you have with money. So some unfortunate money scripts that some people have adopted and still believe to this day is the concept that money is the root of all evil. When money itself is just a tool, money, it isn't evil. That's like saying that a shovel is evil. Well, I can be evil with the shovel and knock you across the head with it. Now that makes me evil, not the shovel. So money being the root of someone's evil acts, no, greed is the root of their act, or envy is the root of their act. It's not the money itself. Or the concept of money doesn't grow on trees. Tell that to an apple farmer. If I'm an apple farmer, I sell apple. My money absolutely grows on trees. Actually, one of the first concepts of money back in the in the old days of South America, were cocoa beans. Money literally grew on trees. Okay. And I believe that money does. I mean, the idea of my money making money is the same idea of an apple tree producing apples. So the money tree concept, I actually believe that. So those are money scripts. That's how the relationship that you have created with your money, and then how that influences your behaviors today. So I believe that we all have the power to rewrite our money script, but it starts with, as we mentioned earlier, understanding what are the biases, what are the behaviors, what are the thought processes, what are the emotions that have already associated with money. Some people have emotions, like I said, greed, there's fear, the envy, scarcity. Some of those things were ingrained in us when we were very young. It was ingrained in me when I was young because I watched my family, my parents, suffer financially for a long time. I woke up one morning and our car had been repossessed. And my father didn't know how to explain to me that what had happened was that he didn't make the payments for 3 months. I'm running around like my hair's on fire, like, oh, Dad, somebody stole the van. And he's like, just take the bus to school. And I'm like, but someone stole the van. And, it became a moment where he's getting heated with me, like, bruh, just take the bus.
Yeah.
The bus is gone already. That's why I usually drive to school. Why are you so calm about this? Well, because he knew that the car had been repossessed. So, but that also came into my life where this scarcity aspect made me want to buy and consume as many things as I could because I thought I wouldn't have money in the future. But it took me, as a financial advisor, I've been a financial advisor for 25 years. So I spent the first 10 years of my advisory career with bad money scripts and poor financial habits, making great money though. I was saving, I was putting money in my 401k, I was doing that, but my bank account, it would sit near empty all the time. My credit cards would sit with higher than average balances all the time because I was constantly, and I was playing the whole keep up with the Joneses, another money script, because I was in those situations where, I finally have it now. I want to enjoy it because somebody might take it from me. So I had to work through that. And that's the same thing that I do as a financial advisor, is to help my clients understand what are those values, what are those behaviors, what are those goals that you already have, and what are the biases around those? Why is it that you're coming to me saying, hey, I don't know if I'll ever be able to retire? Well, you didn't just realize that yesterday. How long have you been sitting with that? Sometimes they've been sitting with that forever because they watched their grandfather or their grandmother or their mother or their father work until they die and never have a sense of retirement. So they think they have to sign up for the same thing. So I know I took a long trip to get to that, but that's what money scripts are. And that's how I help people kind of work through it.
Got you. No, take your time, man. This is great information. Main Street needs to hear it. Like you say, you've been doing it for 25 years and it took you 10 of those years to even realize that you were caught into your money script. You're like your own, what is it, test patient zero alpha case going through there.
What was the hair club man? Hair club for men? I'm
And
not
a
only the
client.
president, but I'm also a client. Yeah, that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. So you talk about your business, your financial planning firm. Talk a little bit. Let's go. I told the listeners that we would give them a chance to learn a little bit more about you. So let's go, like you said, 25 years. Talk a little bit about how you first got into business, then how you went into your solo practice. And your practices, heard you on podcasts, we spoke before, it's crazy with referrals. Talk about that referral engine, that process. So no rush.
Yeah, the referral engine began very early on. So I started my financial services career at Nations Bank as a teller. And as a teller at Nations Bank, part of my role was to refer business to the personal banker for loans and refer business to the financial advisor for investing. And this was in the late 90s, so the heyday of the dot-com era. And in referring that business to the broker, I was very interested in what the broker was doing because, we had these mutual funds and this was all phenomenon to me. And also back then CDs were paying like 6 and 8%. So there was that as well. One day I just kind of wised up and I said, well, wait a minute. I got a t-shirt for referring $1 million. What did he get? And my branch manager was so graceful. She said, you know what? He wants to meet you. And so I went and asked him, the simple question, I got a t-shirt. What'd you get? And he showed me his paycheck. And his paycheck was for 2 weeks was more than I made in the entire year. And I said, I'm in the wrong part of the bank, aren't I? And he said, yes, you are. So I was, I think I was 19 or about to turn 20 at the time, still in college. And I got referred into what then was Bank of America's training program for the brokerage for Series 7. And this was shortly after the Nations Bank and Bank of America merger, which I'm sure you remember back in the day, or you probably remember NC&B, North Carolina National Bank. And then that became Nations Bank and then Bank of America. Well, in that whole corporate commotion, the training program I was in was shut down. So I experienced my first layoff very early on. And from there, I just wanted to work for any financial planning firm that would hire me. The problem is that none of them would. Edward Jones said no. Merrill Lynch said no. Payne Weber said no. Morgan Stanley, all of them, any of it. I went to every single one and they all shut the door in my face. And their reasoning was trifold. Two of them they said out loud and one they didn't. I kind of knew it inherently. Number one was I had no what they call natural market, meaning I didn't know anyone with money. So if I got started as a financial advisor, I didn't have an uncle or aunt or grandparents or anyone I could turn to say, hey, give me, and I also didn't have peers. All my peers were still in college. So most of them said, come back later and when you can find the market. And then the college thing came up. I didn't have a college degree. I was still working through that. And then the third one that was unspoken, but I knew it because we could pick up on these things in the questions they ask. Sometimes these interviews is I was a young black man in an old white man's world. I never got interviewed by anyone remotely brown or even female for that matter. So I knew that it was going to be an uphill battle. But that was also around the time that monster.com came onto the scene. And I had the ability to upload my resume and have access to jobs anywhere in the United States. And when I did that, I checked the box for financial services and I wound up getting an email from a small company, maybe you heard of them, American Express Financial Advisors. So American Express had merged with another company, IDS Life, and created their financial planning arm. And they gave me an opportunity to join the firm in one of 3 cities that were creating a new employee-based financial planning department. And so my choices were to leave Charlotte to go to either Boston, Dallas, or San Francisco. And in my mind, Boston was too cold. San Francisco just sounded expensive. And Dallas and Charlotte tend to be on the same latitudinal line. When I looked at the map and I said, I'll go to Dallas. So I quite literally put all of my stuff in the storage. At the time, my girlfriend was also pregnant. So I put all my stuff in the storage and drove to my first interview and made it to the second interview and then the third. And they basically said, if you pass your Series 7, your Series 66, and your Group 1 life and health insurance license, you get to have a job. But if you fail a test, you are fired. And I said, what y'all don't know is I am an awesome test taker. And so
Standardized.
yeah, so I was able to pass all 3 and was able to start my practice, but I still had the same obstacles to overcome that I did not have a natural market. And a lot of their training was based on going through your natural market and asking them for referrals so you can start to build your practice. And again, I didn't have that. Didn't know anyone with money. I was in a brand new city, didn't know anyone in the city. And so I learned this referral script that was given to me, and anyone that was willing to have a conversation, I would offer them the referral script. And so I started to build my own market. Now, fortunately, since it was American Express, they also had some American Express leads. We would get the crap ones, of course, because we were brand new. And it was smiling and dialing, pounding the phones for 13, 15 hours a week, waiting for someone to pick up and try to convince them to come into an appointment. But anyone that was willing to talk to me or come in and meet with me, I would also ask them for referrals. And I got really good at getting referrals from people. And as a matter of fact, I was able to get some pretty prominent referrals from one young lady who now, from her referrals, the ongoing referrals from those individuals are somewhere around 60% of my practice a day. So over 300 clients a day, 60% of them I can all trace back to one person.
Nice.
who referrals from referrals from referrals from referrals. So somewhere in there, my son was born. I got married, moved to California, went into leadership, spent the next decade in leadership, not really growing my practice anymore. Just kind of held on to the same 60 or 70 or so clients. Started to get a little fed up with my life I created and the relationship that I had with now my ex-wife and my son, and the splitting the time and all that stuff, and then also building a new relationship with my wife today. I kind of my mother had passed away. My father wasn't doing too well. He had a stroke. I'm trying to help my sisters manage in their way out of the house and things of that nature. And I just realized that I'd lost myself in the process. And in that, I decided that I didn't want to be in leadership anymore. However, my leaders wanted me to be in leadership because I was a valuable leader, and we were at an impasse. And I said some things I probably shouldn't have said to one of my upper management, my regional directors, and he decided to fire me. And so I found myself in 2014, after almost 13 and a half, 14 years with American Express, and then became Ameriprise. I found myself in the unemployment line. And meanwhile, I had this core group of clients who had been with me for 13, 14 years that didn't really like the new advisor that they got assigned to. And so they were still calling me like, hey, what are you doing? Are you going to go somewhere else? And I didn't know what I wanted to do because I'd spent so much time in the firm. So I was lost for a little while. It took me about 9 months to finally say, okay, let me start my own firm. And that was thanks to a mentor that I'd had over the years. And I finally called him up and he said, I've been waiting on this call. Because, of course, I was in Long Beach, California, still kind of a small town in a big city. So everyone knew. And so he had heard the news that I was gone. And when I called him, he said, this is the day I've been waiting on. And so he sat me down and said, here's how you build your own firm. And I think in my mind, I'd made it up to be a lot harder than it really was. He was like, no, some paperwork. Fill this out, get registered, find a custodian that can hold your money, and you're off to the races. And so it took me about 30 days, and that's what I did. And then called all those previous clients, and the right ones came back. And then I sat down with one of those prominent clients from early on in the day. And I said to her, she's an emergency medicine doctor. And I said, hey, I think I want to focus on emergency medicine physicians. If you were me and you were starting a new financial advisory practice and you wanted to focus on emergency medicine, how would you go about doing it? And her response changed my life. She said, what are you doing this weekend? No, what am I doing this weekend? She said, come with me to a conference. It's called the Women in Medicine Conference for Emergency Medicine. And I'll give you a few minutes to say a few words. Okay. So I'm kind of a smart guy, I like to think sometimes. So I said, okay, what's the best thing I can do in this situation? I'm going to be a man in front of a bunch of women. Some of them highly educated, or all of them highly educated. Some of them making good money already because they're already practicing physicians, and others that are still working their way through residency. What can I talk about? I decided to talk about the pay disparity that exists in emergency medicine, which is real, still is real to this day. Not as bad as it used to be, but still is real. And apparently it resonated with the room because there were about 30 women in that room. 10 of them became my clients.
Really?
And they started giving referrals, and they kept giving referrals. I just got back this week from an emergency medicine conference out in Seattle. There's about 800 emergency medicine professionals, some of them residents, some of them medical students, and some of them, of course, attending. I've even started a podcast called Becoming an Attending, where I interview emergency medicine doctors, and they talk about their transition between medical school and residency, and becoming an attending, hence the podcast Becoming an Attending, wherever you get your podcast, by the way. So that's out there. So part of my role now is becoming just this voice in the emergency medicine space, because I've been working with emergency medicine doctors for 25 years. So I kind of get their vibe. I understand the struggles that they go through, and they happen to make pretty good money. So, we both make a pretty good living together by working with each other. So the referrals is really just about, number one, serving my current clients well, letting them know that I'm here for them and that I want to help them, helping them work through their own money scripts, their own biases, et cetera. And then just saying to them, hey, you were referred to me, and that's how this works. And if history repeats itself, will be excited to refer me to someone else that you also want to see do well for themselves. And so now it's to the point where the referrals come in unsolicited. I still ask via email once a year, but most of them just come in unsolicited. When I went to the conference, my clients that are already at the conference, they're dragging people to my booth. I set up a booth, pay a few $1,000s to have a booth there. There was 3 financial planning firms there. Mine constantly had people at the booth talking, meeting, greeting. The others, it's people would stroll by every now and then, but they didn't have that excitement there. And half the time I'd look by their booth, the advisors weren't even there. They got bored. Whereas I got to sit at or if I'm not at my booth, I'm getting texts. Where are you? I'm at your booth. I want to introduce you to someone. It's like, bathroom? Can I get a minute? So, but that has come from the culture that's been created around that concept.
Man, that is a beautiful story. See that, and that's a thing that people miss. Like in there, there were a couple big things that people should take away from that. One is that you had a mentor who helped you and like gave you. It sounds like he gave you the game. Like sat down, and just explained to you, like this is what you need to do. Listen to what I'm saying, and it'll work. Especially like when it came to setting up your business, because people spend a lot of money setting up RIAs, trying to figure out the way to go about it. And two, if I'm doing back in the napkin math correct, you got like 180 clients from one person with referrals, right? Can you like that's outstanding, and it shows that you care because people are bringing other clients to you even unsolicited now. So do you think you could even like it? Can you walk someone? So say advisors listen to this as well. So say there's an advisor listening to this and they want to know like from the first meeting, because it sounds like from the first time you talk to someone, you're pretty much letting them know that you want referrals or you work best from referrals, because that's Maslow's hierarchy as well. If your advisors out here worried about their shelter and those type of things, they can't take care of you. So there's basic needs need to be taken care of. So can you dust it off and maybe explain, like, if I met you as a referral, what would that look like? What would that conversation go? How would it go?
So even if I know the answer, some of the best questions you can ask is the one you already know the answer to, because then I can spend some time, because I know what I expect them to say, but I can spend some time focusing on how they say it, their body language, etc. So even though I may know that you were referred to me by David, I'm going to ask you as soon as we meet, Marcus, who referred you to me? And go ahead, play with me here. Marcus, who?
David.
Oh, yes, it was. Wait, how do you know David?
Oh, we played ball together on Saturday mornings.
Okay. Is this something recent? You still play, or?
Yeah, we played, old man ball every now and then.
Okay. Okay. So you met him on the basketball court?
I met David at the ER because I got hurt playing basketball.
Okay. Okay. I actually spent some time in the ER. I got hurt playing basketball as well. Actually broke my hand. And I was an idiot and kept playing too. Like, it's fine. Kept going. By the time I'm done, my hand is the size of two hands, and found myself.
Literally done the same thing.
That's good. Oh man. Well, David's awesome. David's awesome. Yeah, he's there. He's the admitting nurse there at the hospital, right?
I don't know what he was. I think he should be running the place. He was pretty
He
on top
does.
of
He
things.
does practically run the place. He does. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, Marcus, I'm glad we get to spend this time together to talk about your finances. And what I'm hoping is that, since as David referred you, that you're going to have a lot of the same experiences in our relationship that David has had, and you'll be excited to tell other people about my services as well. Right now, let's talk about you. So what I did there is I established a rapport back to the person that referred, helping you solidify that the only reason you're here, the only reason you had access to me was David. Okay. And then I just very gently nudged you to say, hey, if this goes well, you'll be wanting to shout this from the mountaintops as well. That's it. I've laid a foundation, a groundwork. You understand you were referred, and I've let you know that you're probably going to refer me as well. The ask now, at the stage of my career where I am now, I don't have the need to grow as fast as I did in the past. So my ask now will come to you 2 or 3 months from now in the form of an email. And that email will be after we've set up some accounts, we've done some stuff. It basically says, hey, this has been an awesome journey up to this point. It's so excited to work with you, Marcus, and help you reach your financial goals. As I mentioned before, I work primarily on referrals. You were referred to us by David, and my hopes is that you can think of someone that may be interested in my services. Here's what I'm looking for. Now my ask in the email says I'm looking for medical students that are transitioning to residency students that are transitioning, or not students, but residency. Well, they're still students that are transitioning into an attending, or a brand new attending that's facing, the financial questions of how do I manage my life at this new stage. So if you can think of anyone that fits in those categories, if you would, send them an introductory email, CC me on that email, and we'll take it from there. I appreciate you, Marcus. I'll see you in the next session. So that's the email that you get from my assistant. I don't even send the email, but every person gets that email at least once a year.
Nice.
And the referrals roll in. Now, that's what it looks like now. In previous times, that would be a conversation, Marcus, that I would have with you, very similar to that conversation that I had with that doctor almost 10 years ago when I went independent. And I would say to you, Marcus, let's pretend that you are a physician. Actually, let me back up a second. Find a niche and double down on growing that niche.
Yeah, that wraps up part 1 of my conversation with Yohance Harrison. We covered the invisible edge and how to build a referral engine based on trust. But we're just scratching the surface of what it takes to master your financial psychology. Before we sign off, I want to share some incredible news with the community. Our LinkedIn newsletter, the Wall Street South Journal, has officially crossed 1,200 subscribers. Just started a couple months ago. To those 1,200 professionals and families who are choosing market data and headlines over noise every week, thank you for your trust. If you aren't part of that group yet, head over to LinkedIn and join the conversation. It's the best way to stay updated on the trends we're tracking in real time. Also a big part for your mental mind state. Now you want to make sure your notifications are turned on and you've hit that subscribe button because part 2 drops next week. In the second half of this interview, Yohance and I dive deep into the 2026 market landscape. We're talking about everything from the SaaS apocalypse to the psychological tug of war between people with Bitcoin, gold, and how to ensure you aren't passing your own financial anxieties down to the next generation. You don't want to miss the conclusion of this podcast. I'm Sturdivant Sr, and this is Main Street meets Wall Street. Main Street Heart meets Wall Street Smarts. I'll see you back here next week.